Rook. Absent. Mr. Staggerwall.
Here.
Terry Carrasco.
Here.
Sean Haggerty, absent. Thomas Nanovic.
Here.
Natalie Haggerty.
Here.
Joan was over here. Questions and or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, go to public comment. Think I have any public comment? We'll move along and I'll make the motion, looking for a second to approve the minutes of the October 1, 2014 Board of Supervisors meeting. Supervisors workshop.
I'll second.
Hearing no comments, does that mean we have that authorization?
Sounds like a good idea.
Do we adopt the fee schedules the way they are right now and then have to adjust them after we get a new zoning officer?
Well, the way that we have been doing it is Leroy look at our fees, and they have adjusted year to year items that he felt needed to be adjusted. I feel they're fair. I don't know if they should be higher. Someone else would think they should be higher or lower. Or
Do we have anybody interested in the
we do.
position?
We do.
Well, I know at one time we had talked about perhaps using Carl Faust.
That's interesting.
And
Could he do both?
He is willing and would.
He does do both in other townships.
Yes, yeah.
Are you gonna have more than one, or are you just having one?
We've just had one
You're just gonna have one though?
zoning officer.
Do you understand the value of having more than one for the benefit of the people that are doing it?
No,
You don't understand that value, or no, you don't wanna have that value?
not for a zoning officer.
So my question was simple. Do you understand the value, or do you not understand the value for the benefit of the citizens? And then the question after that is, if you don't understand the value, or do?
I don't understand it, but have we ever had a problem with our,
No.
have we ever, I don't know that we've ever had an issue with just having one.
What's the value of having one in comparison to having two?
Well, consistency.
Consistency.
They're going back to an ordinance that is written.
And I'm
How
going
much
to tell you one
consistency?
thing right now. We have a uniform construction code in the state of Pennsylvania, and everybody interprets it differently. So I don't want to get into a problem with having two zoning officers interpreting the zoning ordinance differently, and one person getting a permit and another one being denied a permit that has to come into a variance and spend the money for a hearing and come in and say, well, that other zoning officer granted that permit, why should I have to come in and pay for a variance? So, two people, two different interpretations. I'd rather have one person, one interpretation. If there's a question, they approach the zoning hearing board.
Right, but the value of having two?
time out.
Can Leroy make a comment?
Time out. You were certainly not recognized. as
Oh, I'm
a
sorry.
city. And we don't even know your name.
Understand. I'm the man with no name. But the idea of having two is the ability for the person that's spending the money.
I'm
To be able to-
not in a position where I want to argue with the man that doesn't have a name.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Leroy, you wanted to make a comment.
Well, the first 2 years that I had it, I had one heck of a time trying to get it straightened out. Because we had an alternate at that time, he'd say one thing and then you have to go out and check out on the other thing. And it took 2 years to get it straightened out, and I think for the last 8 years it was running real smooth.
And I would concur just on what I've
agree.
been involved with.
Right.
And even when there was perhaps a difficult or complicated issue, and you would bring your concerns to either the solicitor or the board of supervisors, and we'd work through it. And I would agree that we don't need to add more complication having a second. If the demands on the zoning officer became so onerous that we couldn't keep up, we can address it at that time. So anyway, I would make the comment that we would regret that Leroy is deciding to retire.
Oh, right.
I wouldn't have guessed you were retirement age. But anyway, I would also make, if we don't know for certain, or ask, have it submitted in writing, at least as a starter, to make contact with Carl Faust to present him with what the fee would be, and we're offering him a bed fee. And if he wanted to review the fee schedule, we can make a copy available to him.
My question is, do we wanna put an ad in the classified ads in the paper seeking, letters of interest for a zoning officer? Maybe there's someone in the township here that would be interested in being the zoning officer. I don't know, but do we need to put that out?
We don't.
We don't have
Legally,
to.
you don't have to, as a practical matter, it might be a good idea to do that, just to see if anyone else is interested.
Well,
I was gonna add, John, you can also find out easily enough what Carl's gonna charge you, because I would assume he's gonna charge the same rate in Mahoning as he charges in Commencing, where he's a zoning officer.
I
assume
would,
so.
Like I say, I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just wondering if there's a resident in the township that is interested in it.
I wouldn't have any opposition to it. The only comment I would make is that if Carl was agreeable at the fees that we're offering, I'm not so certain you're gonna get anyone else with the qualifications that he would bring. I don't know that. There could be someone just as well qualified.
Well, I just read an email from Carl concerning 259
Yep.
Jamestown,
Yep.
where he raised questions that he does not know what's in our zoning ordinance. And so basically, whoever comes in to replace Leroy, whether it be someone in the township or Carl or whoever, is going to have to read our ordinance and become familiar with our ordinance, so that when he takes off in the position, he's familiar with it. So in either case, whether it's Carl or whoever, they're still going to have to review the ordinance. Because what I got from the letter that I saw that he had sent, he said you should be looking in your zoning ordinance to see if this is the way it is here. It may not be that way in your township. He's not familiar with the zoning ordinance. So anybody who comes in would have to basically read the ordinance and get up to speed on the ordinance.
Okay, is it then, we need a a motion to direct Natalie to submit a advertisement requesting letters of interest for zoning?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in a legal notice. I would just put it just a little under miscellaneous positions in the help wanted ad.
I'll make that motion to authorize Natalie to make that advertisement. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, we can go to the next item, which
Well,
the fee schedules we're going to hold off on until we would possibly have a zoning officer willing to accept the position. Is that my correct understanding there?
well, like I say, we can. I don't see any need. We haven't had that many subdivisions, so I don't think there's any need for changing those fees. We've had a couple zoning hearings. we've collected sufficient funds to cover the hearings. I'm assuming,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
okay? They haven't been that complicated, so that it hasn't been that costly.
No.
I wouldn't have a problem with basically adopting the same fee schedule that we have for this year, with the understanding that
So,
we may have to adjust a few of them
that's fine.
come January.
Okay.
We do that at reorganization.
Right, I'm just trying to get some feedback now. If anyone was,
I think we would keep the same fee schedule.
okay.
Okay,
Did Scott say anything about SEO fees?
His are good. I checked with
He's fine.
Scott, I
Okay.
checked with Carl first building.
Okay.
okay, we move on to committee reports.
What about Leroy's letter? Did we make a motion to accept it?
I thought we did, but if we
No,
didn't,
we didn't.
He started, I think.
and then what happened?
I think he made a joke about he was too young to retire.
Well, I guess.
I'll make the motion that we accept, with regrets, Leroy Livengoo's letter of resignation.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries.
Did you
Miss
second that,
you,
Carol?
Leroy?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor? In favor?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh. What was the problem we were having?
Can we ask you a couple questions in the meantime, or are they going to jump right into the next one?
It's a shame, isn't it? What's up,
You can ask a question, I don't know if I'm gonna answer it.
The question I have is, why would you only want one zoning officer?
Yeah.
What was the concern?
Consistency.
Okay, but if you have it written down as what the ordinance is, the consistency would become from the written word, not from the individual, correct?
Well, I disagree with that,
Okay,
because of interpretation.
that's fine. So then the next question
Someone
is,
can read read a sentence, come up with one interpretation, another person can read that same sentence and come up with an entirely different interpretation.
so if you have a competitive situation, are they going to come up with the interpretation that's in the best interest of the individual, or the best interest of the township, or the best interest of whoever?
Don't know.
Given the opportunity for competition, wouldn't that lead to a
Competition
value?
between zoning officers?
Yeah.
Why would you want competition between a zoning officer?
Well, why would you want to have a monopoly of a zoning officer?
For consistency.
Well, currently you have a benevolent dictator that is your zoning officer. He's it. There's one guy, he's benevolent, he's been doing it forever, and you've had no trouble. We know for a fact that you're trying to pick somebody that has had a tumultuous history of overzealousness associated with exactly what you're talking about, is the discrepancy associated with the written word. To the point where every time he has an issue, that man gets paid more, Carl gets paid more, the township pays more, and you gotta hire a zoning board to oversee whatever overzealousness that he takes place. It's just a way to transfer money directly from the supervisors directly to these two individuals, him and the zoning officer. If he's overzealous. If he's not overzealous, you don't have the issue. The reason you haven't had the issue is because you had a wonderfully benevolent dictator, gentleman, that did a great job. So you're setting up a situation where the issue can come forward. What do you think about that?
I think John said if there becomes an issue, we would take a look at it.
Yeah.
Well, why are you going to wait? Why wouldn't you have the foresight of the experience to know that it has become an issue in the past and you can prevent it?
Well, it hasn't become an issue here.
Well, not here, but it's become an issue in other locations, and it's just a copy of the same thing. I mean, you don't have to be that bright to know that, what happens in one place may or may not happen in another, and to prevent that is why you wear a seatbelt, correct?
I'll be honest with you, I've never actually heard of two zoning officers. I made a note to myself to see if you can even have, I really don't know if you can have two zoning officers.
Why can't you?
Oh, there's a thing called the NPC, that's my thing here. Because I'm curious myself, I've never heard of a municipality with more than one.
We haven't, you're setting up a situation here that's just gonna get worse. You realize that?
Then we'll deal with it. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. Hasn't happened, so we,
Fair enough. Do you wear a seatbelt?
yes, I do,
Why?
because it's state law.
Is that another reason?
Yes.
Okay,
If it wasn't state law, I wouldn't wear it.
good for you, okay.
Okay?
On the, sorry. I find humor in that, but anyway.